Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another eMarketer Tech Talk, where we host amazing guests from all areas of media, ad tech, and MarTech. I'm Henry Powderly, VP of Content at Insider Intelligence. Today, we'll hear how to create unique holiday email experiences at scale without draining resources. I'm joined now by our special guests, Melinda Sandman, Senior Director, Global Acquisition Marketing at Intuit MailChimp, and Monica Nolasco, Research Director at Edelman Data and Intelligence. Melinda and Monica have a great presentation for you, and afterwards we'll open it up for Q&A about what you've learned. So please use the chat window to submit those questions for the Q&A. Now let's get started on the topic of personalization. Marketers talk a lot about personalization, but we also know it can be a buzzy term with lots of different meanings depending on who you talk to. What does personalization mean to each of you?
Sure, I can get us started. So the way I would define it is that it's just a way to show your customer that you hear them. And we know from our research that we're about to dive into that customers are ready to tell marketers more about themselves, what they want, even going as far as feeling comfortable sharing some of their personal data with them. But in response for that exchange of information, what they expect in return is really just a more tailored set of communications from brands. So it's just a new way of communicating to your customers.
Yeah, to me, personalization is really at the heart of being customer obsessed. It allows you to show your customers how your business, your goods, your services can satisfy that customer's need or solve that customer's problem. The unique thing at Intuit MailChimp is that our customers are marketers. So as we're thinking about being personalized, right, and solving our customer problems, we're actually thinking every day about the problems that advanced marketers encounter. And how do we make their lives easier and make their marketing more successful? We're thinking around bringing their customer data together. How do we arm them with the ability to turn that data into actionable insights? And then how do we arm them with the tools to do it at scale? So since personalization is really at the heart of being successful as an advanced marketer, we at Intuit MailChimp actually saw the opportunity to help marketers understand how to best connect with their customers through personalization. So we commissioned this study that we're going to walk you through with Edelman to learn how marketers approach personalization and then how their thinking aligns, or maybe even more importantly, doesn't align with customer preferences and behaviors.
Excellent. That's exciting. It's always great to have fresh research and insights to share with our audience. But before we jump into those, Monica, can you tell us more about the study and how it was performed?
Yeah, absolutely. So my team over at Edelman, we conducted a study to examine the relationship between customers and brands. So to do this, we fielded a study in the US to 1,000 Gen Pop consumers and 500 e-commerce marketing professionals. And then we also fielded that same study in the UK to 500 consumers and 200 e-commerce professionals. And this is a great methodology to just get a better understanding of any tensions between marketers and consumers that we'll get into. Just again, a good way to get a great perspective from both sides.
Thanks, Monica. So popping up here our research. So from this research, we derived 6 insights that can show marketers how taking a personalized approach to their holiday campaign, and really campaigns at all times of the year, can ultimately help save time and maximize revenue. So we're going to cover important topics today like channel strategy, customer data, segmentation and using AI, and brand building and promotions. So to set the scene, we'd love to discuss why personalization is so important, especially around this critical holiday peak time period. We've got some numbers to share to provide context on why this peak season is so crucial. Monica, can you share that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that the holiday season can definitely be a make or break time for a lot of businesses' bottom line, and the proof is in the data. So we actually asked marketers in our study to estimate, how much does the holiday season drive your annual revenue? And 2/3 said it drives 21 to 40% of their annual revenue, which is huge. But the downside of that opportunity is that, of course, a lot of other businesses have the same thing in mind. They're trying to achieve that same goal around the same time. And so last year, we actually saw that from Thanksgiving Day through Giving Tuesday, MailChimp customers sent over 8 billion emails. And on just Black Friday alone, I think it was over 400,000 brands marketed with MailChimp. So, just looking at those numbers, it's pretty clear that everyone's fighting for those same consumer dollars. And so it just makes it more of an imperative for marketers to find a way to cut through all that noise that's happening during that season.
8 billion emails is a lot of email. And so given just that volume, we see that the common response from marketers, many of whom are dealing with time and resource limitations of their own, especially at this time period, is they think about sending as many emails as possible, right, to as many people or inboxes as possible, in hopes that by saturating, they'll get that one or two emails in the inboxes that'll help them stand out from the pack and snag that sale, right, or close with the customers before their competitors does. But what we actually have seen is that marketers see better business results when they take a more focused, personalized approach. So some of the numbers that back that up, customers are 87% more likely to click into an email if it's personalized to them. And 71% of customers are more likely to purchase from a company that actually sends them a personalized email. We know that everyone at this time of year in particular has a lot on their plates, and it's tough enough to find that time to figure out how to implement new techniques or strategies. And it's even more overwhelming with all of the different techniques and strategies out there to figure out what do you prioritize or even have the confidence to know what's going to pay off. And what we found is that nearly 3 in 4 marketers are definitely overwhelmed by all the different personalization capabilities that are offered. And that same percentage feel that they don't have the time to explore all of these different options.
So that's pretty convincing data. Personalized emails are not just a nice to have, they're a must have if you aim for impactful results. Monica, could you guide us through the first insight from your study? Specifically, how can marketers zero in on the right personalization capabilities as they gear up for the holiday season and beyond?
Sure. So one of the first learnings from our study is that yes, SMS and social media are still really valuable communication channels, but at the end of the day, email absolutely still reigns supreme. And the proof again is in these numbers. So we saw that more than 9 in 10 marketers say that email marketing is very or extremely important to their overall marketing strategy. And I think it's easy to understand why when we look at the customer perspective. So it's actually the preferred channel of, for over 4 in 5 customers. They say they prefer email over any other form of communication when it comes to brands communicating with them. And at the same time, nearly all marketers, over 9 in 10, say that email marketing has a great ROI based on their experience. And it also allows for easier connections compared to other types of marketing channels.
Building on what Monica just shared, email just continues to be an incredibly versatile channel. When you think about the real estate that marketers have in an email, lots of space to be able to message many, many different types of messages, right? A number of different ways to personalize that content, which means that marketers can really use email across the funnel, anything from brand building all the way down to lower funnel like promotions. And then what Monica also shared is the ROI. Email still offers one of the strongest ROIs out there as a marketing channel. It's free. You're not paying for every send. You're not paying for every open that you get. And often someone's email address is often that first data point that you actually get from a customer, like that, especially from a first party data perspective, which makes it a great channel to be able to start building that customer relationship. But we're not recommending that other channels are ignored. Rather recommending that marketers think around how email can complement their core message and how you think about a broader multi-channel campaign and where email really sits as a linchpin of those channels. So an example to talk through is, let's say you run a clothing business. You can use email in your total multi-channel strategy to let customers know about an upcoming sale or remind them about a sweater that they left in their shopping cart. And then you can follow up with a channel like SMS to really drive urgency and maybe share a discount code for that sweater that they left in their cart. And then you think about kind of the full funnel is using social to potentially publish a social post with tips on how to style that sweater that they were eyeing that's in their cart.
Excellent examples. Now let's pivot to data sharing for personalization. Melinda, I feel like there's a lot to unpack here in terms of customer expectations and marketing preconceptions.
Absolutely, Henry. Ultimately, a marketer's ability to personalize is highly dependent on what they know about their customers' needs and interests, so they can ultimately tailor that message to what the customer cares about, right? And show that they can solve that customer problem. As marketers, we're often wary of asking our customers for too much information because we're worried that customers will get turned off. And while this absolutely is a legitimate concern, we found that if data is collected with transparency and consent, customers actually don't mind exchanging their information for more relevant, personalized content. So what we found is that nearly 3 in 4 customers are comfortable with companies using their personal data if they're transparent about how they're using it. And basically the same amount, 73% of customers feel more valued when they receive personalized emails.
Yeah, and going off that point, we actually uncovered a really surprising tension point related to data transparency. And so in our survey, we found that although 9 in 10 marketers say that they're pretty satisfied with their current personalization strategy, nearly half also said that they don't know their customers extremely well, which seems counterintuitive. And so we saw this tension play out in an interesting way. What we noticed is that there's actually a disconnect between the type of data customers are willing to share and what marketers think they are willing to share. So one, not only are customers more willing to share data than marketers realize, they're actually more comfortable providing specific types of demographic information as well. So what they're comfortable sharing is actually their gender, their age, which might be standard, but also their product preferences, their personal interests, their hobbies, even their geolocation. And the second insight we uncovered actually goes back to Melinda's point around this need for data transparency. So obviously it's important to your customers to be transparent about what data is being collected and how brands intend to use that data. And for context, we found that 8 in 10 customers say they're actually not sure how much of their data companies have on them and what's stored. But we also know that 3 in 4 customers say that they would be comfortable with companies using their personal data if they're not only transparent, as Melinda mentioned, but also they have an option to opt out about what is being collected about them. So it does come down to giving customers a sense of control over how the information is stored and what's being used.
That's really interesting. Melinda, can you share a little more about how marketers can determine what types of data they could and should collect?
Absolutely, Henry. So for marketers, just because the data is available doesn't mean it's going to be useful. Marketers really need to make sure that the data is relevant to what they're trying to achieve, relevant to the customer problem that they're trying to solve, and make sure that they also have a reliable way to collect this information. It's really important for marketers to work with their business stakeholders to understand what product they're selling, what services they're selling, right? Like, how does their business make money? And what data would help to create personalized messages. So for example, kind of sticking on this e-commerce example, let's say your business sells women's clothing online. It may not be that helpful to know gender, since you're selling only one gender of clothing, but it may be really helpful to know the general location for climate, right? Or maybe lifestyle needs of your customer. So a way this could play out is, let's say your business sells outerwear and you know which customers live in climates that get colder first. You could then get a jump on sales for the season by promoting or featuring coats to the customers that you know need those coats first. A way to think about getting data like this is using things like email sign-up forms or customer profiles online. I've seen a lot of examples of companies even running sweepstakes, right? To be able to incentivize customers to provide their information for some type of prize, right, that they get back. Really important to remember that the more information that marketers try to collect, the higher chance that customers will skip it altogether, which is why it's so important to know how you're going to use the data so that you can prioritize.
That makes a ton of sense, Melinda. I also wonder, though, even when marketers have this targeted data, are they actually using it to connect with their audience in meaningful ways? Monica, what do the stats tell us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we found that even if marketers have the right customer data and enough of it in hand, a lot of them just don't have time to use it effectively. So in our study, we found out that only about half of marketers say, I have a really good understanding of my customers' demographics, interests, behaviors, or engagement. And more than half say that leveraging customer data is currently a challenge that they face today. So it was not really surprising when we found out that about 8 in 10 customers said they received some sort of personalized email that actually was not personalized and didn't really reflect their personal interests.
For marketers thinking around effectively utilizing the data, one of the best ways to do this is to break your audience into segments. And so what are segments? Segments are smaller groups of people that share common traits, common behaviors, like purchase data, right? Demographic data. And by sending those segments sending those emails to the segments, it's a great effective way of being able to personalize. Great news for time strap marketers is thinking around tools like MailChimp and thinking around tools that save time. So MailChimp offers tools like pre-built and predictive segments. And so what these tools do is they actually use machine learning to automatically generate segments. So marketers don't necessarily have to manually create the segments for themselves. And we'll go and look across the data at traits that we talked about, like campaign activity or purchase history or demographics. I'm really excited about where we're going with generative AI with a tool that a suite of tools that we actually just introduced called Intuit Assist, which is our suite of AI-powered tools. with generative AI, marketers can now actually use natural language prompts to create segments. And so what does that mean? Using the language that I'm using right now, right, your day-to-day language, you can tell MailChimp something like, I want to create a segment of women who purchased in the last 30 days. Don't have to worry about programming or sifting through the data. Intuit Assist will do it for you, making it quick, easy, big time save to be able to segment your audience and personalize your marketing. Not only do the tools save time, I really love that it helps to guide and also gives you confidence that you are breaking your audience up into those valuable segments.
That's fascinating. But Melinda, do emails sent to segments perform better than emails that are sent to everyone on your contact list?
Great question. So what we have found at MailChimp is that segmented campaigns absolutely have a higher click-through rate than non-segmented campaigns. So we've got some data here. On average, MailChimp customers see a 33% higher click-through rate when they segment their campaigns than when they don't. Even more interesting as we talk about this critical holiday time period, last year between November 21st and December 1st, so basically kind of that Thanksgiving, Black Friday, Giving Tuesday, Cyber Monday time period, we saw that segmented campaigns sent through MailChimp actually saw a 45% higher average click-through rate, so even higher than on average during this critical time period. And when we think about personalizing too, we talked about using AI, you can also learn a lot by going back and thinking around what you saw in your previous marketing efforts, right? And looking back at that data. So for example, you can look at last year's holiday campaign and identify your most engaged or your best customers, and then target those folks, because we know those folks, that audience segment is critical for sales, with messages like thanking them for their support or showcasing items they might like because you have their purchase history, and encouraging repeat purchases. Another way you can think about segments as well is new customers. So you don't know anything necessarily about new customers. They haven't purchased with you yet, but you do know that they're new customers. So it's a great way to develop that personalized message, welcome them with a greeting, show them your best sellers, like teach them about your brand, or tell them to reach out if they have questions, and build that relationship. I can appreciate that as we're going through all of these different tips and tactics, it feels like a lot. And I know personally as a marketer, as I'm thinking about building out my audience segments and thinking about personalizing, it's not only building out the segments, it's also thinking about building out content. And content is what is really the rub. And this is a really exciting place that MailChimp is actually using Intuit Assist and introducing generative AI to not only create segments, but also help create content. So we talked about creating segments before. You can also use Gen AI to create content. So this could be something like creating a first draft of an email, just to get the creative juices flowing, help with subject lines, maybe even play with examples of different tones or even lengths of copy. You can also test, right, like what works better by using Gen AI to create all these different types. You can even create A/B test and really like have confidence that you know what's working. Gen AI is really a game changer. It's like basically getting an extra marketing coordinator, an extra copywriter to help you during the holiday season and beyond to scale creating content and really have confidence that you're able to personalize. It's a win-win on all fronts.
Thanks, Melinda. I can jump into this next slide here. So as we think about creating those tailored experiences and what that means from a brand building versus selling perspective, there is a fourth key insight I want to talk about, and it's that customers want you to share with them, then you have the permission to sell to them. So a lot of marketers recognize that brand building should be an important part of their strategy. But what's interesting is that a lot of them just actually don't make it a priority today. We actually saw that 9 to 10 marketers say, I'd rather prioritize email marketing strategy to achieve other goals besides brand building. But the data shows that when marketers do leverage these types of strategy, customers are actually really receptive to it. More than 7 to 10 customers say they would trust a company more if they received an email that has some sort of brand building initiative in it. And nearly 7 to 10 customers say they like to receive those types of email. It makes them think those companies are sincere and compassionate. We also learned that marketers already recognize that there are benefits to utilizing brand building strategies, even if they're not using it today. But one of the key benefits was that it helps establish that emotional bond with your customer, but it also helps create content where your brand is immediately identifiable to your customers as well.
Absolutely. Ultimately, as we think from a marketer's perspective, building brand is really establishing trust with your audience. And I think we have to definitely have the stats that show that. And so as a marketer, we know that customer service, things like the quality of your products or your services that you're selling are huge in creating that trust with your customers. But marketing is super effective to be able to humanize your business and make customers feel valued through that communication. So the way to think about building your brand as a marketer is expanding your efforts to include things like email, right? Also going back to ROI, and it's a great free channel that maybe are intended to drive sales. Thinking around things like educational content, maybe a glimpse behind the scenes, really showcasing your brand. And it's really important to think about how you share this content at a time where it does add value to your customer's journey with the brand. So some examples here is you can think about when someone subscribes to your newsletter. We know that they're a new customer, right? Just starting their journey with the brand. You could share a welcome message with your leadership team, or maybe an overview of your brand mission. Or going back to our favorite segment of best and most engaged customers, before a product announcement, make your best customers feel valued, give them exclusive access maybe to a video of how that product was made. In a way, brand building just plays into another aspect of personalization. It's really sharing those moments of your brand that are relevant to where your customers are in their journey with you.
Fantastic. So as marketers think about all of these insights you've both already shared, I know our audience is going to want us to dig into some specifics to get them ready for the upcoming Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend. Melinda, what did you learn about marketers engaging their customers over this major shopping weekend?
Yeah, so we started off talking around how more than 8 billion emails were sent by MailChimp customers between Thanksgiving Day and Giving Tuesday last year. Super interesting is when we drove into the data and really looked like day by day last year in 2022, from the Monday before Thanksgiving, this is all in the US, through the Tuesday the following week, which is Giving Tuesday, marketers sent an average of 1.3 billion emails per day. It's a lot of email. We knew it was going to be a lot of email. The most surprising part is when we actually looked day by day and looked over the weekend. So on Saturday and Sunday, the actual average daily average number of emails dropped pretty significantly to 744 million. The interesting thing that we also saw was that customer click-through rate on these emails did actually remain steady. So what does that mean for marketers? Customers are just as likely and just as interested in opening emails during that Saturday, Sunday time period, but there's less competition. There's a lot less, right? Almost like half the number of emails going to inboxes during Saturday and Sunday. So absolutely a time to use that to your advantage as a marketer. So some examples to think about for that critical weekend is you can set expectations or maybe even build anticipation, letting your audience know that there's going to be an email coming out and give a little bit of a teaser. And then you can actually schedule an automated email. You don't have to work over the weekend. Schedule that automated email for Saturday or Sunday when we've seen that there's less competition in inboxes. And then you can think about from a personalization or a content perspective, thinking around highlighting Black Friday specials, maybe promoting a weekend only discount to drive urgency there, or getting customers ready for Cyber Monday. So kind of playing that out a little bit more and talking about how automations are going to be critical so that marketers don't have to work over the weekend. MailChimp has tools like pre-built automations that can kind of help inspire and show what some of the most common automations are that are really effective. An abandoned cart automation is a great example. Very common, super effective. It's a great one where obviously a customer leaves something in their cart. You can set up that trigger to then go to them on that Saturday or Sunday with less emails and maybe even offer them a promotion to come back. So no other work for you than setting up that automation and taking advantage of that critical weekend.
Excellent. So we can't talk about holidays without taking into account promotions and discounts. Monica, what did you learn in the study?
Yeah, so we already know that personalized offers are definitely an important way to help your marketing stand out. And this was definitely confirmed in our survey. We saw 8 in 10 marketers say that's very or extremely important to target their customers with some sort of discount code as part of these personalized campaigns. But this is also a trend that absolutely holds true during the holiday season. We found that about 9 in 10 marketers plan to offer some sort of promotion or discount for this upcoming holiday season. And on the customer side of things, 62% say for them personally, holiday promotion and discounts are very or extremely important. But what's interesting is that even though most marketers are planning to offer some sort of discount, they're actually split on which customers should be receiving those types of promotional emails. So we saw about half say they plan to offer those discounts to all their customers, regardless of a list. But then a similar share, 43% said, I'm only going to offer those discounts to a segmented or targeted list of customers.
Melinda, how do marketers make these promotions truly meaningful and effective?
So as a marketer, I really took away from Monica's stats that we know that promotions are going to be offered kind of across the board, right? Majority of marketers are going to offer a promotion, but less than half say they plan to offer a personalized promotion. So huge opportunity to lean in there and think around how would you personalize promotions. Some examples to share. One is thinking about sense of urgency. So we know that about 63% of customers start thinking around their holiday shopping before this Thanksgiving time period. So being able to leverage, right, on customer intent, send a personalized promotion that maybe scales down every day. So maybe it's 2 weekends before, it's, for example, like 20% off, buy now on the weekend, because then on Monday it turns into 10% off, right? Driving that urgency, driving those purchases before all the competition and all the noise potentially starts. Another example would be exclusivity. We've talked a lot about best customers, most engaged customers. Use promotions to make these customers feel more valued. They're going to be spending more with you than any other customers. So send them promotions that are tailored just to them. The great thing is by personalizing your promotions, you can often protect your margin. So definitely a win-win here. So what you think around this is if something's selling well, it doesn't need a promotion. Let it sell at that price. Really use your promotions to focus on what's not selling well, or maybe something that could even be like a loss leader and will gain a lot of attention and help drive traffic in to your business, right? And really capitalize on your marketing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for covering those 6 insights. Is there one single thing this audience should take away to optimize their seasonal marketing? What is that?
Yeah, Henry, I think it's really clear that marketers see better results when they take a more focused, personalized approach. But that doesn't mean that marketers need to do it all. Hopefully with these tips and tactics, marketers can think around leaning into leveraging the most relevant customer data, sharing that human side of your brand and your business with your audience, taking advantage of that critical Saturday and Sunday, Black Friday weekend, and then thinking around how to offer kind of tiered and personalized promotions. Marketers have the best chance of breaking through the noise and really capitalizing on the most effective techniques.
Yeah, and I would add to Melinda's point that marketers shouldn't be afraid to ask for the data that they need to provide that more personalized approach, because at the end of the day, you're going to be giving customers exactly what they've been asking for, and it's that more curated experience.
Awesome. Well, Melinda, Monica, thank you so much for this presentation. These have been great insights, and we do have quite a few questions, so let's get straight into them. The first question is, how do you ensure that your communication doesn't add to the noise, but is instead valuable and engaging for your customers? Monica, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So obviously, personalization is going to be really one of those top strategies to deploy to avoid adding to the noise. But I think one way to take that step further touches on something we talked about earlier, and it's those brand building strategies. So from the customer perspective, if you think about opening up an email, it's going to be a breath of fresh air if you open up something that's not trying to sell you something immediately from the get-go. And we know that this is a type of content that customers are really receptive to, and they'll actually engage with your brand more. So we saw in our study that more than a third say that if they receive some sort of brand building email, they would actually leave a good review or rating. They would refer the company to someone else. They would even click a link in your email to learn about it more, or maybe go shop with you. And so it just requires maybe being a bit more vulnerable in what you're sending out to your customers in terms of a brand building initiative. But in return, customers are going to engage with you. And again, you're adding something different to the noise and trying to cut through the noise in that way.
Excellent. Thanks so much for that. We have another question here. Maybe Melinda, you can take this one. What advice do you have for marketers who are looking to start adopting more tools?
I always think about going back to the basics. So as a marketer, I always really lean into what my customer problem is and what my data is telling me. So I think it's really important to go back and look at the history of your marketing campaigns, the history of your data, what are your customers looking for, and then thinking around what might be those tools that match the problem that you're trying to solve. So for me, it's all about reading in the data. It can, a recommendation on what type of tool really varies on what type of industry, what type of customers, like who are you trying to target. But as a marketer, really being grounded in what the data is trying to tell you, I think it's critical to think about what tools where you may go next, right? Or where you may think about personalizing as kind of as that first step.
Excellent. Here's another one. Email was highlighted as the foundation for holiday campaigns. How do you leverage other channels like SMS to enhance email strategies without overwhelming customers? Monica, do you want to take that?
Sure. So I think a lot of the email marketing guidance we've shared already can absolutely apply to SMS. So really the key takeaway there is, your content can't be too generic. It can't be unrelated to who they are or their personal interest, because then you're flooding their inbox and flooding their phones or their apps. And so we actually saw in the data that 43% of customers are comfortable and want companies to share personalized product recommendations as an example. They also want to hear about like service reminders, even in-app notifications. These are all things they're comfortable getting on their phone, whether it's in a text or an app. So just kind of another way to leverage that channel.
Awesome. Melinda, this one's for you. What kinds of data do you find most useful for personalizing campaigns, and how do you ensure customers are comfortable sharing it?
Yeah, so I think going back to some of the insights that we kind of unpacked and found in our research study, just because you have the data right doesn't mean it's useful. So what I've always done in my past is really work closely with my other key stakeholders in my business and kind of understand what are the decisions that they're making. Also going back and looking at my marketing and seeing like what's performing really well. So whenever I think about kind of doing more, I always look at like where kind of those like little signs of life and signs of glimmers to be able to kind of do more. And you already have kind of some proven success there. Talking about the ensuring customers are comfortable sharing it is really interesting. And I think kind of leaning into some of the insights that we found is it's all around being transparent. So, even working with design partners and thinking of kind of what that kind of touch point is in the customer journey. How do you make sure that customers, one, see what you're going to do with the data? So how do you kind of share that at opt-in moments? You can even, I think, make it fun and share why you want to know that as a way for customers to understand, hey, if I give you this piece of data, I'm going to get something in return, and it's going to be much more valuable to me. So really, at the end of the day, I think my best piece of feedback, right, is always like think around like why does it matter to the customer and what are they getting out of it to be able to really build that trust in that relationship.
Yeah, that's a great answer. This next question gets back to the topic of holidays. What kinds of challenges do you anticipate retailers and brands facing this holiday season, given the current economic climate? Monica?
Yeah, I think one of the key challenges is actually on the customer side of things. And it's just that customers are probably going to be a bit more thoughtful and careful about who and where they spend their money. And so I think that's where personalized promotions and discounts can really come into play. Yes, a lot of other businesses have the same idea. We saw that in the data, especially, giving out discount codes on Black Friday and Cyber Monday. So I think that what that means is customers are going to be just flooded with discount codes in their email from, every brand they've probably ever subscribed to during that period. And I think with fewer consumer dollars, they're just going to be a lot more selective about who they spend with, which is why personalizing those promotions will be really key to just take it a step further and help your promotional emails stand out during, a really critical period, just so consumers are a bit more inclined to spend with your brand.
Yeah, that's great advice. All right, and we have one final question today. Monica, maybe you can take this one. What will be some of the most important strategies for businesses to focus on over the next 3 to 5 years based on evolving customer preferences and technology?
Yeah, my immediate response is personalization, which is no surprise. But I think what's interesting is that over the next 3 to 5 years, when it comes to like evolving technology and preferences, I think one thing we have to think about is those data privacy regulations. So we'll probably find over the next few years a lot more restrictions on what customer data we're able to access, what they're able to share with us. And it just means it's even more critical to ensure marketers are constantly transparent with their customers about how their data is being used. But the good news is we saw in the data that the more personalized content that you share with your customers, the more willing they are to grant you brands access to their data and kind of, again, that exchange of information. So that's why it's so important to nail that personalization strategy of the next 3 to 5 years in light of those, changing privacy regulations.
I think to build too on Monica's point, as a marketer, knowing that personalization is so critical, and those again demands, right, will continue to grow. I think really leaning into as a marketer, figuring out like what are those kind of tools and technologies that are evolving that are going to make that easier. Granted, it'll make it easier for everyone, right? Competitors included. But I think this is a great example of how marketers can use something like AI to really aid them versus thinking around, it's going to replace certain things. It's really more just like one more thing to be able to continue to have that relationship and personalize for customers. The brand is always going to be super important. That's where marketers can lean in, right? And use technology to make that stronger versus kind of being scared of it or thinking of if it's something that could replace other things.
Well, we started out today talking about personalization, and that's a great place to wrap with some great advice. So thank you so much, Melinda. Thank you, Monica. This has been great. Thank you for answering all the questions from the audience. We really do appreciate it. Before we wrap up, let me take a moment to tell you about eMarketer's upcoming events. Mark your calendar for Friday, November 3rd for Attention, our half-day live virtual summit focused on trends and predictions for 2024. Registration is open on our events page at eMarketer.com/events. While you are on that events page, you can also register for upcoming live analyst and tech talk webinars. Finally, keep an eye on your email for the link to today's recording. Thank you all for your time, and thanks again to Melinda, Monica, and the team at Intuit MailChimp, our Studio II crew, our production team behind the scenes, and everyone else involved in making this webinar possible. We'll see you all on the next Tech Talk.